This conference will now be recorded.
Yes, we can turn it over to Chris
Hello.
Stetler to open our hearing on the home program application. And at the end, we will also have public comment. So, Chris,
Okay,
Hello.
thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Hello. Okay, we there?
Hello?
Hello,
Hi,
I'm here. I just
Okay.
Go ahead.
Um,
We hear you, Kevin. We hear you,
Okay.
Kevin.
you got it. All right.
Okay. Thank you for attending this. This is a public hearing to answer questions and solicit comments on the borough's proposal to apply for $350,000 in home money. Home funds are federal funds that are available through the state of Pennsylvania, and the borough has been receiving these funds for a long time, since 1993, and we plan to use the money to support the borough's housing rehabilitation program. So the $350,000 would be split between administration and construction. About $21,000 of the money would be used for administration. The remainder would be used for construction. The reason we're doing this is that the borough's operated the rehabilitation program for well over 30 years. And we are at the point right now where we have approximately 12 applicants on the waiting list. With the money we have available, we will not reach all of those houses. There will still be approximately 6 to 7 applicants that we will not be able to serve. One of the reasons for this is our costs have gone up substantially. Some of it is due to COVID and the fact that the reopening has forced the prices of materials high. Subcontractors are lined up. It seems like people who put things off during the pandemic are now ready to do them. So our average cost for rehabilitation per property is in excess of $30,000. Rehab activities can include roof replacement, heater replacement, kitchen improvements, bathroom improvements, electrical upgrades, plumbing upgrades, and anything that is code deficient. All of the houses have to be able to meet the borough's property maintenance code as soon as they're finished rehabilitation. We also are required to remediate any lead-based paint, and since most of the housing in Conshohocken was still built before 1950, so there are still some older houses that still have lead paint in them. We're also required to remediate any radon that is found, and in the last 5 or 6, 3 to 5 of the houses have had radon issues, which we've had to remediate. People who apply for the rehab program can come from anywhere in the borough, and they must meet income requirements. The income requirements are established by HUD. For one person, the income requirement is $52,940. For a couple, it is, or for 2 people in the household, it's $60,500. And then the amount goes up as the number of people in the houses increases. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on this, on the application, on the rehab program, why we're asking for it. And I would also be interested in any comments that anyone who's attending the meeting have, so that we can take those into consideration as we develop the application. No questions, no comments?
No, thank you, Chris, for trying to figure out some more creative ways to do things.
You're most welcome. Thank you very much for holding the hearing.
Yeah, thanks for all your hard work.
Anytime. Take care now. Bye.
Thank you, Chris.
Chris.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.
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 So we will open the meeting. By the authority vested in me, I hereby declare this meeting of the Conshohocken Borough Council duly open and ready to conduct any business that may come before it. Steph, will you do roll call, please?
Of course. Councilmember Tatino.
Present.
Councilmember Griffin.
Here.
Councilmember Barton.
Here.
Councilmember Stokely. He is absent, and we'll note that for the record. Vice President Sokolowski.
Here.
President Leonard.
Here.
Mayor
Thank you.
Aronson.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steph. Ms. Sokolowski, if you could do prayer for council, please.
Sure. O divine Master, in deep humility, we place ourselves, our thoughts, and our plans in thy hands. We beg thee to fill our minds with and our wills with the gifts of wisdom, understanding, counsel, fortitude, knowledge, and piety. Help us not to think of self or personal desires, but rather consider responsibilities laid upon us. Help us promote as far as possible the welfare of our people and to treat them with impartiality and justice. Grant us the power to set a good example in thought, word, and deed, so that thy blessings will be showered upon us and the people we represent.
Thank you. And if council could now do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the
To the
flag
flag of the
of
United
the United
States
States
of
of America and to the republic
for which it
for
stands,
for
which
which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with
with
liberty
liberty and
and
justice
justice
for all.
for all. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for our regularly scheduled public voting session. At this time, please mute your audio lines. No public comment will be permitted during the course of the meeting until the designated public comment section located on your agenda. You will be notified during the meeting when public comments are permitted. You may also submit written comments via email to brogers@conshockenpa.gov. A member of Borough Administration will read public comments submitted in this manner. For all comments, please include your name and address for the record. Thank you in advance for your cooperation during the remote meeting. Prior to the meeting, council held an executive session on legal and property matters. The first item on our agenda is land use matters, public hearings, and ordinances. The first item is a public hearing on conditional use application for 450 Caldwell Lane, stacked condos. Dryden Court Development is the applicant. And Mr. Peters, I will turn that over to you to open the hearing.
Thank you, President Leonard. Ed, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Very, very good. This is the scheduled date and time for the conditional use application of Dryden Court Development LLC for the property located at 450 Caldwell Lane. That is tax parcel number 05-00-00103-00-9. The relief requested is from section 27-1901-B of the Borough zoning ordinance. As President Leonard said, the applicant seeks conditional use approval to permit a multifamily residential development consisting of condos, 48 of them, in the LI Limited Industrial District. As Borough Council is aware, section 27-1901-B, along with the entirety of that part of the ordinance, was repealed by action of this council. However, this application came in prior to the repeal, so the application is moving forward before you this evening. I have several borough exhibits I need to mark for the record. I tried to avoid duplicating what the applicant will be presenting to you. B1 is the proof of publication. B2 is the Planning Commission report of the Borough's Planning Commission dated June 10th, 2021. B3 is the Planning Commission report of the Montgomery County Planning Commission dated March 4th, 2021. B4 is the emergency management review issued by the Borough dated May 19th, 2021. B5 is the revised zoning determination of the Borough zoning officer dated May 20th, 2021. B6 is a letter from Rob Lewis dated January 28th, 2021, granting an extension of time for Borough Council to hold this hearing until April 30th, 2021. Exhibit B7 is a letter from Rob Lewis dated March 12th, 2021, granting an additional extension of time to May 30th, 2021. Exhibit B8 is a letter from Rob Lewis dated March 25th, 2021, granting an extension to June 30th, 2021 to hold this hearing. Exhibit B9 is a letter from Rob Lewis dated May 11th, 2021, granting an extension of time for Borough Council to hold this hearing to July 30th, 2021. And of course, you are now holding it this evening on July 21st, 2021. I was informed by Borough staff that we received no entries of appearance for party status in this matter. For those on the call, at the end of the hearing, residents and property owners will have a chance to offer comment on the application, whether in favor or against. You also have the ability at this time to state your intention to become a party in this matter. Becoming a party means you can ask the applicant's witnesses questions. You can present your own witnesses. You can be represented by your own attorney, and you can ultimately file an appeal if you are unhappy with the result, which you cannot do if you merely offer public comment. So at this time, is there anyone on the call this evening that wishes to become a party to this matter? If so, there will be an opportunity for counsel to the applicant to ask you a few questions. Is there anyone on the call that would like to become a party to this matter as opposed to simply offering public comment? We will let the record reflect that there was no response to that question. Therefore, we will move forward with no additional parties to this matter other than the applicant. And with that, I will turn it over to applicant's counsel, Rob Lewis, who I know has several exhibits and witnesses to present. So Rob, please take it over.
Great, thank you, everybody. Everybody, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Again, good evening, Rob Lewis from Kaplan Stewart, and I represent Dryden Court Development, LLC, the applicant this evening. First, I guess an introduction of my team with me this evening are David Brasso, the principal of Dryden Court Development, as well as our engineer, Joe Estock, and our traffic engineer, Sandy Koza from McMahon Associates. As you heard your solicitor describe before council this evening's our application seeking conditional use approval for a proposed 48-unit multifamily development for the property located at 450 Caldwell Lane. To be clear, in December of this year, we actually filed two separate applications for conditional use approval, both seeking approval for multifamily development in accordance with the residential overlay in section 1901B, but they provided two pretty distinctly different designs. I just wanted to be clear that we're here this evening only in regard to the application that we refer to as the stacked condo units. The other application consisted of 59, I'll call them more traditional apartment units, all on a podium. That application, as I think you should be aware, has been stayed pending resolution of this application. So again, our application this evening seeks conditional use approval for multifamily development. And that is through section 1901B, which was the residential overlay, which at the time of filing the application applied to the industrial district, which is the district within which 450 Caldwell Lane sits. Should I share my screen, Brittany, or will you just flip through exhibits as I go? What's best for you?
I have it ready to go, so I can flip to the
Wonderful.
exhibit when you call it out, if that's okay.
Great. Perfect.
Okay.
So if I may, I'll try and give an overview of the project. Doing that, I'll identify our exhibits for the record, and then we will present some brief testimony from our witnesses. Of course, at the end, I'll make my witnesses as well as Mr. Brasso available to answer any questions that council may have. I will certainly do my best to be brief, but also try and be as thorough as I can in a short period of time. I did, as you see on the screen, I provide our exhibits electronically to your manager as well as your solicitor, but I'll identify them also for the record here as I go along. A1, just to establish standing, is a deed to the property, as you heard, identified as 450 Caldwell Lane, with title being vested in Dryden Court Development, LLC. Applicant's Exhibit A2 in the package is a time-stamped copy. You can barely see the timestamp up there of the actual application that brings us here this evening. Applicant's Exhibit A3 is simply a Google aerial image of the property and surrounding properties which I think we may return to at some point for some questions. And then we'll get into the project, I guess. If we can, leave A3 here. As I mentioned, we're obviously here at 450 Caldwell Lane, located at the corner of Caldwell and Fifth Ave. Fifth Ave, immediately adjacent to this property, as you can make out slightly on there, it's already developed with a townhouse project. And then as you proceed down Fifth Avenue, it becomes a mixed use of residential dwellings. There's some additional towns, some twins, and by the time you get further down, even some single family detached dwellings. By contrast, immediately adjacent to this project, across Caldwell Lane, there's an array of industrial facilities, including immediately adjacent to us being the Rumsey Electric Company building, Ardmore Tire, and then some auto and truck repair facilities. If we can go to A4, applicant's exhibit A4 is the existing conditions plan, which was part of the plan set that was submitted with the conditional use application. The property currently is improved with a 27,000 square foot warehouse, as well as some associated parking facilities. Access to that existing warehouse is from a single driveway located along Caldwell. That driveway also provides secondary access actually to Rumsey Electric. They actually have 2 points of access from our current parking lot. All of that was established by an easement that was established. The property was originally conveyed back in 1978. The property itself, as you can even see on this plan, does have some significant slope. The high point being on the northeast corner of the property along Fifth Avenue, sloping down as you come along Fifth Avenue towards Caldwell. And then obviously anybody that's ever driven Caldwell knows that Caldwell slopes itself pretty heavily down towards Elm and the river. If we can go to applicant's exhibit A5. Applicant's exhibit A5 is what I'll refer to as a conditional use plan. This is a plan that was prepared by our engineer, Joe Estock, and is identified as sketch plan G. The plan is dated May 12th, 2021, with the last revised date of May 18th, 2021. Again, this is part of the plan set that has already been submitted with our application. That plan set also included a landscape plan and landscape details. We will pull those up if we need to, but I don't intend to address them immediately here. As depicted on this conditional use plan, our project proposes to redevelop this site for 3 multifamily buildings that will total 48 units. The units are stacked condos, meaning each unit is partially adjacent to another unit, but it's also either above or below another unit. This achieves a number of kind of critical design elements for us. First, it allows us to provide at-grade access to each of these units. Second, it allows us to provide individual garages for each unit. And third, it allows the units really to fit well within the slopes of the property. And lastly, it allows the units to have more of a townhouse architecture so that we can provide what we believe is a vital transition from the existing townhouses along Fifth Avenue towards the more industrial development and along Caldwell Lane. The project, as you can see from this plan, will retain the access that exists along Caldwell, but we are adding a second access along Fifth Avenue. This will do 2 things. One, it provides a much better access situation for emergency services, and it also ensures that if there are any flooding events along Caldwell, all of our residents and even Rumsey Electric could then have access to higher ground along Fifth Avenue. The project, as depicted on this plan, complies with the applicable area and bulk requirements, except for 2. You likely know we've already filed an application regarding those 2 items, and that application is currently before the zoning hearing board. The first has to do with the front yard along Fifth Avenue. We have sought relief to actually bring Thank you. To bring the units closer to Fifth Avenue, we're seeking a front yard setback of 5 feet where 30 feet would be required. The second would be to permit a maximum building height of 40 feet where 35 feet is otherwise permitted. It's important to note with respect to these two items, specifically the 5-foot setback, that 5-foot setback isn't from the curb. I don't want anybody to think that you're going to suddenly have units right along the curb on Fifth Avenue. In fact, that setback is from the right-of-way along Fifth Avenue, and the right-of-way currently is 25 to 30 feet off of that curb line. You can actually see that depicted on this plan. So the units themselves are still 30 to 35 feet from the curb line. The request to reduce that front yard really is doing two things. First and foremost, it brings the project really up to the streetscape along Fifth Avenue, allows it to better integrate with those existing dwellings and the existing townhouses next door and feel more of a unified streetscape. Second, it also significantly improves pedestrian access and circulation from this site. If the units were set back additionally because of the grade, we actually would have a very awkward situation where you would likely have sidewalk along along Fifth Avenue. You would have, but to get to the units, you would have to go all the way down to our access point, come down the grade, and then traverse back across the fronts of those units. And that's because you wouldn't be able to have sidewalk with appropriate slopes from the edge of Fifth Avenue to those units. Again, because of that steep slope up there, you would end up with really more or less a ditch, this valley between those units and the sidewalk along Fifth Avenue. Obviously, that's not inviting. And also troublesome from a pedestrian standpoint. So moving those units up certainly improves that. Moving those units up also allowed us to modify the access point along Fifth Avenue to provide better circulation. I won't go into all the details, but suffice it to say, it significantly improved our ability to provide better circulation for emergency vehicles. As for the height, again, this is topographically driven, trying to make sure that we provide the garages, but also fit these units within the slopes. So we are asking for that height relief for those units. Our application was also accompanied by a stormwater report. That stormwater report was prepared by Mr. Estock. There we go. That stormwater report is applicant's Exhibit A6. It's dated December 29th of 2020. This project describes in more detail than I think anybody wants to get into exactly how the stormwater runoff from the project will be managed to make sure that we demonstrate compliance with your ordinances in that respect. Applicant's Exhibit A6 was the traffic impact assessment report for this project, which was prepared by McMahon and Associates. That's dated December 28th, 2020. I have included here only the first 14 pages of that report. Our application itself, when submitted, included all 216 pages of that report. And if you are ever having trouble sleeping, I suggest going through those appendices. They will help you, I'm sure. Tonight, I think with respect to Sandy's testimony, we'll likely only need those first few pages, but if we need more, we obviously have it available. The traffic impact assessment, which you will hear more about from Sandy briefly tonight, does demonstrate safe and efficient ingress and egress to the project. Once we met and discussed this project actually with Borough staff, you'll notice that we did revise our plan. That's why I did previously identify our conditional use plan as Exhibit A5, which incorporates those comments. We did thereafter receive updated reviews from the borough's zoning officer, as well as the borough's Office of Emergency Management. I think your solicitor marked those as well, but just to be sure, I have marked as applicant's Exhibit A8, I believe that's the zoning officer's updated review of the project dated May 20th Applicant's Exhibit A9 is the the revised emergency management review, which is dated May 19th. Those letters, as you can see by their brevity, are generally clean. A few things, though, to highlight. The zoning officer did concur that the proposal is a permitted use. He likewise concurs that sketch G design, which is applicant's Exhibit A5, would require the front yard setback relief that I mentioned. And he also notes that the trash receptacle that is located on sketch plan G will need to be relocated from to meet the setback requirement, as well as to make sure that it is landscaped and architecturally consistent with the remainder of the project. That's obviously not a difficult task for us, and we will comply with that requirement. And then we also will comply with his comment with respect to decks. Decks are only permitted on the ground floor and first floor of units, so we will comply. The emergency management review indicates that our revised plan has satisfied all of their prior concerns, with the exception of one, which has to do with a gate. We have agreed, and I'm sure council is aware of our discussions with your solicitor. We have certainly agreed to provide and install a gate on this property. That gate is intended to ensure that ingress and egress is prohibited along Caldwell Lane during the case of emergencies, flooding emergencies. We have discussed with your solicitor that the exact location and specification of that gate would be reviewed and approved during the land development process. But again, we have agreed to provide and install that gate when this project is constructed. The last exhibit, I think that I'll mark this evening, were simply some conceptual images that we have marked as applicant's Exhibit A10. Again, these are concept architectural images showing really what we think the streetscape will look like. They also include floor plans to demonstrate compliance with your minimum unit size requirements and so forth. You'll note with these images that really the goal again here is while we are providing multifamily development, our goal really is to integrate this project into the existing townhouse community adjacent to us, and to provide really a transition from those townhouses to the existing industrial on the other side. So we think that's critical of this project. You'll also note, just as a final point from me, that the Planning Commission did unanimously recommend approval of our conditional use during their meeting on June 10th of this year. So unless council has any questions for me specifically, I'd like to call Mr. Joe Estock and try and run Joe through a few questions.
I have one quick question. Brittany, if you could back it up to the plans, please. No, the other way.
Yeah. There you go. Oh, one. Yep, there you go.
The large white squares off of Caldwell at the houses, what is that, please? I can't
I'm sorry,
read.
I didn't hear the beginning of the question.
Okay. The large white squares on Caldwell, yeah, those. What is that, please?
Those are grass areas.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it looked like squares because you have sidewalk along Caldwell and then connecting sidewalks to the fronts of the units, but that's grass.
Okay. I just wanted to be sure it wasn't driveway.
Yep. No, all the units are rear loaded. So
Okay.
the units will, yeah, there you go. Central driveway. All the garages are tucked under the units to the rear.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
That's all.
Great,
In
thank you.
those, question, in those same houses, the grass areas, is that considered the front of the house or the back of the house?
Those would generally be considered the fronts of those units, so they'll face the streets.
Okay. So then you would be putting a sidewalk in that area that may not have one already?
Correct. The sidewalk wraps around the entire frontage, both on Caldwell and on Fifth, and then provides access to the fronts of each of the units.
Thank you.
I do have one other question. Do these houses line up with the ones on Fifth that are in?
I'll have to have Joe Estock answer that question for you. I think to the extent we could, we lined them up, but I think technically to get them to line up directly, we would have actually had to go into the right of way.
Because the houses on Fifth have the island and their parking. So I'm wondering if they line up.
I'll try and have Joe address that streetscape for you during his testimony.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Great. Any other questions, or should I just have Joe come up? All right. Joe, are you there?
I'm here.
Wonderful. Joe, can you be sworn in, please?
Sure.
Mr. Estock, please state and spell your full name.
My name is Joseph M. Estock, E-S-T-O-C-K.
You solemnly swear the testimony about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Estock, are you a licensed engineer in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
I am.
And how long have you been licensed and practicing engineering in Pennsylvania?
I've been licensed for 33 years.
And have you previously testified before municipal boards for matters including conditional uses?
Oh, yes, numerous times, and numerous times in the Borough of Conshohocken, too.
Excellent. And you're generally familiar with the property located at 450 Caldwell Lane and the surrounding area?
I'm very familiar, yes.
Excellent. The conditional use plan, Joe, that I identified as applicant's exhibit A5, it's titled Sketch Plan G, and that was submitted with a plan set submitted in support of this conditional use application. Am I correct that that plan set was prepared by you or at your direction?
Yes, it was prepared by me.
And all right, Mr. Peters, I would like to offer Mr. Estock as an expert in civil engineering.
President Letter, members of council, I know you are all familiar with Mr. Estock. My firm is very familiar with him. I'd recommend that you accept him as an expert in the area of civil engineering.
Yes.
Very good. He is so accepted, Mr. Lewis. Please continue.
Joe, you heard me briefly describe the project as I was identifying all of our exhibits tonight, and particularly with reference to Exhibit A5, which is on the screen now. Just generally speaking, do you agree with my overall summary of the proposal that's before the board this evening?
Yes, I do.
And can you just in your own words either magnify or provide your own description just very briefly of the project?
Yes, what we're proposing is a redevelopment of the site using 48 modern multifamily housing units, more commonly known as stacked condos. So every two houses will be integrated one and above each other. So there'll be like 24 footprints that create 48 units.
And access to the project, Joe?
Yes, we have 2 points of access. We have a new access we're proposing off of West 5th Avenue into the site. And we're also going to retain the existing driveway entrance off of Caldwell Lane.
Joe, typically in a conditional use proceeding, I'd end up having to run you through a host of objective criteria that we need to satisfy for a conditional use. However, here there really are very few specific objective standards for the grant of a conditional use in accordance with Section 1901B of the residential overlay. But I'm going to run you through a couple of those for the purposes of the record. Quickly, when the application was filed, is it your understanding that the property was subject to the residential overlay?
Yes, it was.
And the proposal that we just talked about, applicant's exhibit A5, conditional use plan does propose multifamily dwellings?
It does, yes.
And in your opinion, does the proposal as depicted on sketch G Exhibit A5 comply with the area and bulk requirements of the borough zoning ordinance?
Yeah, except for the two zoning variances that you already mentioned.
And that's the front yard setback and the height, both of which we've sought relief from the zoning hearing board for.
That's correct.
Okay. Joe, noted on the plan, am I correct, is the 100-year floodplain? Is that correct? Is that on the plan?
It is on the plan.
And am I also correct that that 100-year floodplain crosses the property kind of in that southwestern corner?
Yes, near the Colwell Lane entrance. That's true.
Was that 100-year floodplain that you have on the plan, was that simply overlain using maps from FEMA, or how is that determined?
Actually, we have two lines on the plan. I have a line that's labeled FEMA 100-year floodplain boundary, which was just a two-dimensional overlay of the FEMA maps onto sketch plan G. And that line that's shown on the FEMA map really does not even come onto our property. However, the other thing is the FEMA maps do indicate an elevation to which the 100-year floodplain will rise, which is elevation 74.3. So what I did is by field survey actually went to the site and determines which portions of the site are at or below elevation 74.3. That's equivalent to the 100-year floodplain boundary. And that's 74.3 contour, which is equivalent to that 100-year floodplain elevation, is also shown on the property.
Okay. And Joe, are there any improvements or any dwellings proposed within either of those floodplain delineations?
There's no dwellings within either of those floodplain designations. And the only improvements within those floodplains are existing improvements. There's no proposed improvements.
And no proposed earth disturbance or improvements within those boundaries?
That's correct.
Okay. And Joe, in support of the application, I identified previously applicant's exhibit A6 as a stormwater report. Am I correct that that stormwater report was prepared by you?
Yes.
And am I correct that that stormwater report demonstrates that the project will comply with the borough's stormwater regulations?
Yes.
Joe, in your opinion then, based on that stormwater report, is it your opinion that the project will not have a negative impact on the public health, safety, or welfare from a stormwater runoff standpoint?
I agree. I agree with that statement. Yes.
Okay. Joe, I want to turn quickly back to some of the articulated standards in the ordinance. Section 1903B specifically first talks about scale, rhythm, and materials, but it also mentions that the project shall be consistent in heights and massing to the adjacent buildings. Do you believe that the proposal, as we have submitted it with all the exhibits mentioned this evening, complies with this requirement? Do you believe that the proposed height and massing are consistent with surrounding properties?
I do agree with that. Yes.
Okay. Joe, the next criteria talks about yard dimensions. I believe you touched on this, but for the front yard that we are seeking relief for along Fifth Avenue, does our project comply with the applicable yard requirements?
It does, excluding the front yard setback along Fifth Avenue.
Okay. And Joe, I described a little bit in detail why we're seeking that relief. Do you agree with my description that that relief is principally dependent upon our desire to bring the units into the streetscape and to deal with the existing topography?
Yeah, absolutely. That's correct.
Okay. Joe, next, moving to section 1903B4, and that actually goes from B4 all the way through 13, sets forth a series of dimensional criteria. Those include building coverage, impervious coverage, parking area setbacks, parking requirements, building separation, tract area, minimum unit size. Does our proposal satisfy each of those criteria?
It satisfies each and every one of those criteria, yes.
And am I correct that the zoning, the conditional use plan applicants exhibit 5 contains a zoning table detailing that compliance?
It does, yes.
Okay. Joe, the residential overlay also sets forth criteria for landscaping and buffering standards. Those are in section 1904B. Are you familiar with those standards?
I am.
And I think I mentioned in my opening that the plans that we submitted in support of this application included a landscape plan and some landscape details. Is that correct?
Correct.
And those were prepared by you?
No, they were prepared by a registered landscape architect.
Excellent. I had to at least catch you at least once. Do those plans demonstrate compliance with the landscape and buffering requirements?
Yeah, they did.
And am I correct that we will make a revision with respect to our dumpster location? Is that correct?
Yes, I think what our revision will be, we'll eliminate the dumpster, then have individual collection for each unit.
Excellent. Joe, the only other standards really relevant this evening are the general standards that are applicable to all conditional uses, and those are set forth in the ordinance under section 27-826, and that prescribes that the proposed use shall not be contrary to the public health, safety, and welfare. Do you believe that our proposal satisfies this criteria?
Yeah, absolutely does, yes.
Joe, do you believe that what we have presented in terms of our application adequately provides for vehicular circulation?
It does, yes.
Joe, do you believe that our proposal adequately provides for pedestrian circulation?
Yes.
Joe, any reason to believe that this project cannot be adequately served by public utilities?
No.
And do you believe that our proposal adequately provides landscaping and screening in accordance with the ordinance?
It does, yes.
And do you believe that our proposal adequately provides for the protection of natural resources?
Yes.
Do you believe that our proposal presents any significant hazards to the health, safety, or welfare of future residents?
It does not.
And do you believe that our proposal will impair the appropriate use or enjoyment of neighboring properties?
It will not, no.
And Joe, I think there's a question on the floor from council about the setback of the units along 5th Avenue. I'm wondering if, Brittany, if we can go back to Exhibit A3, I think that's the aerial, and Joe may be able to give us some perspective on kind of our units relative to those. And if we need to, I can share my screen and I can zoom us in on an actual Google image if that's even easier.
Yes, West 5th Avenue has a 30-foot wide cartway. So that's the dimension of the street between the curbs. And that 30-foot cartway is situate in an 80-foot wide right-of-way. So that means on each side of the street, our side and the opposing side, there's 25 feet of lawn from that face of curb up to the ultimate right-of-way line. So the first 25 feet when you leave the street is still right-of-way, but it's just right-of-way. That's all it is. Now, the property immediately to the southeast, it's known as Freedley Square. Those townhouses, they were built right to the right-of-way line. So they have a 0 front yard setback. Our property.
And Joe, we are trying to propose. Oh, I'm sorry. Finish. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah. On our property, we have that large warehouse building. On the aerial photograph, it's right where the pin is dropped. It has that whitish roof. Our existing warehouse is set back 5 feet from the ultimate right-of-way line. So essentially, our warehouse and Freedley Square are about the same distance from the curb within 5 feet. The warehouse is set back the 25 feet plus 5, so it's 30 feet from the curb line. Freedley Square is set back 25 feet from the curb line. The proposed units, the front yard will be exactly in the same location as the existing warehouse. So when you come down West 5th Avenue, all those townhouses will be aligned with existing townhouses on the same side of the street within the 5 feet.
Great. Thanks, Joe. That's all I have for Mr. Estock. I don't know if council would prefer to ask questions of Mr. Estock first or have me present my only other witness and then generally ask questions. I'll leave it up to council as to how you'd like to proceed.
President Leonard, do you have a preference?
I think we could move along to the next witness and then ask questions at the end.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sandy Koza, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Welcome. Can I have my next witness sworn, please?
Ms. Koza, would you state and spell your full name, please?
It's Sandy Koza, Koza.
You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
Sandy, with whom are you currently employed?
McMahon Associates.
And am I correct that you're a licensed engineer in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
Yes, I am.
And about how long have you been licensed and practicing in Pennsylvania?
Over 16 years.
And in those 16 years, have you previously testified before municipal boards for matters including conditional uses?
Yes, I have.
And are you generally familiar with the property at 450 Caldwell Lane and the proposal that's before council this evening?
Yes, I am.
I think that Ms. Koza is familiar to the council, certainly to your solicitor, and I would offer Ms. Koza as an expert in traffic engineering.
Mr. Lewis, you're correct. Ms. Koza is very familiar with to my office, and I would recommend to Borough Council that you accept her as an expert in traffic engineering.
Yes, I will accept Ms. Koza as an expert in traffic engineering. Thank you, Mr. Peters.
Very good. She is so accepted. Mr. Lewis, please continue.
Appreciate it. Ms. Koza, I marked previously applicant's exhibit A7, traffic impact assessment report. That report, along with the 200 plus pages of appendices, that was prepared by you or at your direction, correct?
Yes, it was.
And unlike the prior testimony, I did not try and summarize your conclusions. So can you just very briefly describe for council what you studied and the conclusions that you reached?
All right. Well, we studied 5 area intersections, including the existing site access and the proposed site access. We also looked at Caldwell and 5th Avenue, Caldwell, Brook Road, and Sutcliffe Lane. And then we looked at Elm Street, Caldwell, Wood Street, and Maple Street and 5th Avenue. So those were the intersections we looked at. And we looked at the weekday morning peak hour, which is usually between 7 and 9, and the weekday afternoon peak hour between 4 and 6 p.m. And what we did was we looked at the future traffic projections for the site based on a conservative estimate from the Institute of Transportation engineers regarding the trip generation. When we prepared the site, we were looking at the 2 different options, one with the 48 unit, which is what's being proposed here tonight, and another option, which was the 60 unit apartments. We based it on the more conservative 60 unit apartments when we were doing our trip generation projections and the analysis, because that does generate more traffic. And that in the report, there's also a comparison of the by right use, which was the existing property, and what it could potentially be developed to generate. When we looked at the impacts to the area intersections, we were not having any significant impacts that would require any mitigation or improvements. And the accesses, we looked at the site distance for the access points, and those are acceptable based on industry standards. So we didn't have any improvements other than what was being done for the access driveways themselves within the study.
So Sandy, again, I think you said it, but just to be clear, based on your analysis, there are no physical improvements other than our site access points that need to be made to accommodate the traffic to be generated by this proposed use?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And Sandy, is it your conclusion that based on the design that we've set forth on applicant's exhibit A5, which is sketch G, that the proposal will in fact have safe and efficient ingress and egress?
Yes, it will.
And is it your conclusion that emergency management vehicles will have safe and efficient ingress and egress as well as circulation through the site?
Yes, that was one of the things that was looked at in terms of laying out the access points and the driveway and parking aisle widths there, was that the fire trucks and emergency vehicles could make it through.
Great. And so Sandy, then is it your overall conclusion that the proposal will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare from a traffic standpoint?
Yes, it is.
That's all the direct testimony I have for Ms. Koza. And I think actually, well, I'll reserve the right to call Mr. Brasso in case we need any testimony from him. That's really all the direct testimony I'll present this evening. I would simply ask that council admit applicants exhibits A1 through A10 into the record. And then we're here to try and answer any questions that council might have.
I have one. Anita, the slope at the far end towards Freeway Square, what do you plan on doing with that? Are you carving it out, building a wall? Because that is pretty steep.
Yeah, Joe, do you want to describe how we're addressing the grade over there?
I could try. I haven't figured it out. It's a little bit difficult to describe. But that last view close to Ridley Square will be tucked into that slope. Keeping in mind that frontage off of Fifth Avenue, that will be graded, that area will be filled in so it's level with Fifth Avenue, and it'll be tied into the slope. Now, in the back of the building, that will be 1 story lower. So that'll make up that 10 or 11 feet of difference in elevation. So I guess the best way to answer your question will actually be, it'll be cut into that slope, and the building itself will function as the retaining wall.
So they're going to have ground all along that side of their building?
Yes. Yes.
Are you waterproofing the house?
It would be just like any standard basement that's below grade. Concrete walls and waterproofing, yes.
And Joe, a significant portion of that will actually be garages, correct?
Yes, the lower level will be garages, yeah.
So there is no retaining wall?
That's correct, no retaining wall.
Anyone else on council have any questions for Mr. Lewis?
It's Tina. I just have one question. The units on the Caldwell Lane side, because that's a light industrial area and currently has industrial buildings down there, did you plan, or are we looking at the lighting from a public safety perspective?
I'm sorry, Tina, I think you cut out a little bit there. I didn't hear all of it. I heard you say something about lighting.
Yeah, so from a public safety perspective, since that is a light industrial area in that area, and we don't have a lot of homes along Caldwell right in that area, did we plan accordingly for lighting from a safety perspective?
Tina, I would think that we certainly will, and I think that the details of lighting is something that can be addressed when this goes through the land development process. Because you're right, with sidewalk in that location and the fronts of dwelling units, you're certainly going to want to have some lighting for those residents along that area.
Thank you.
Anyone else on council? Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Lewis, for your presentation and information. It's truly appreciated. And I will turn it back to Mr. Peters.
Thank you, President Leonard. At this time, I would recommend that Borough Council accept into the record exhibits A1 through A10.
Yes, I will accept those into record.
Great. At this time, we will close the hearing in this matter, and we will ask if there are any members of the public that would like to make a comment regarding this application. If so, please unmute yourself and state your name and address.
Hi, I don't know if you can hear me. I'm Margie Berger. I'm right behind.
What's your address?
Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. 429 West Fifth Avenue.
Gotcha. Please.
Okay. My deck overlooks the warehouse presently. So obviously my concern is just in terms of how high are the townhouse is going to be? How is it going to affect what I look out now? I know you've talked about the stacked condos, but I'm just curious as to how it's going to affect how I live and what I look out now. I mean, I'm looking at it at a warehouse presently, of course, which is not the greatest thing to view. So I do think that maybe obviously this will be an improvement, but I don't know if anybody can give me any indication of height or things like that so that I can know if I'm going to have a block view for however much longer I'm living here or what the scenario would be.
Yeah,
Go ahead. I don't know who was talking just now.
sorry, it's Rob Lewis.
Okay.
Mr. Peters, it's Mr. Lewis speaking. Margie, to the extent I can answer that, and Joe can certainly chime in. If we can scroll all the way down to applicant's exhibit A10, I think it's the last sheet. I know we didn't spend a lot of time on it, Margie, so I'll bring that back up to give you a sense of it. Yep.
Right.
So again, the units, much like the units, your home. So your home is 3 stories above grade plus a pitched roof above that. So
Correct.
our units will be consistent with that. We have requested the relief to go from 35 feet to 40 feet in total height, simply to address some of the topographical issues, because there's going to be places where if you measure it in accordance with the borough's ordinance, we will hit 40 feet. But again, you're looking at an effective living space of 3 floors, but with garages tucked in underneath. So consistent with what you have today. The warehouse today sits down kind of in a hole.
Right.
Our units will not sit down in that hole. So our units certainly will change your view shed, but hopefully generally for the better. I know you won't be able to see 476 probably as well from when these units go in, but hopefully it's a much cleaner and nicer aesthetic than looking out over the warehouse that exists there today.
Okay, thank you. I just, like I said, I like to sit outside and see the sunset, and that's what I'm hoping I still will be able to view when all of this is said and done.
Yeah, and again, this project has quite a long lead time before it's likely constructed as well, and so.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you, Margie.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for the comment. Anyone else from the public that would like to make a comment?
Yes, I'd like to make a comment. This is Anna DeSantis. I'm at 200 West Elm Street. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
We got you. Yes, please.
Can you go back to that drawing of the units that we were looking at that shows the grass and the parking and all that?
Exhibit A5, I think it is, which is close to.
Or it was I think it was 6. Was it this one? Yeah, this is the one. The garages, are they going to be, how many parking units, whether it be a garage and a space for each unit? How many parking spots for each unit?
Each unit will have 2 parking spaces.
And is there guest parking there in this development? There's
an entire row of additional parking along the southern side of our site.
Okay. Yep, I noticed that, and it wasn't mentioned, so I thought I would ask if that was that. And yeah, and there's going to be a sidewalk, right, where you can walk down. If someone's just going for a walk down 5th Avenue, they're going to be able to walk in front of these houses. They don't have to walk in the street, right?
Right.
Okay, that's great.
Sidewalk does not exist today, but sidewalk will go all the way around our site when this is completed.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any additional comments from any member of the public, please?
I can hear you guys, but can you hear me?
We can. Please state your name and address.
Oh, I'm Kev Lukens, 207 East 8th Avenue. How many units are going to be there? How many units?
48.
Okay. And you said there's going to be 2 parking spaces for each unit?
That's correct. Plus
Okay.
additional parking for guests.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other members of the public that would like to make a comment at this time?
This is Jacqueline Rocker from 111 East 10th Avenue. I just have a quick question. I don't know if I missed this piece or not, but I know that area floods a lot, and I wanted to know, is there anything being done within the with the property that's being built to kind of prevent the flooding from continuing?
Ms. Rocco, this is Rob Lewis, the attorney that made the presentation earlier. There's, quite frankly, there's nothing we can do to stop the flooding that occurs, that obviously is naturally occurring, but we do have an obligation to do a couple of things. One is to manage any stormwater runoff from our site that we generate. We are doing that, and that we put in a report that demonstrates how we will do that. So that is one of our obligations that we will meet. The other important piece of information, 2 pieces of information. One is that we are making sure that we don't do any work within what is called the floodplain. So we are making sure we don't modify the floodplain in any way or add any structures within the floodplain that would change how Caldwell Lane currently floods. We're not setting up any dams, as somebody might, a layperson might think. So we're not going to move those floodwaters if they occur. And then the last piece of it, at the borough's request, we have agreed to install a gate so that if there is a flooding event, which I believe has happened in the past where Caldwell became unpassable, a gate will actually be able to be closed so that people don't accidentally drive out onto Caldwell. And what we have done in addition to all of that is to provide a much safer access during those situations, because now we have access out to 5th Avenue. So if there were a flooding event on Caldwell, all of our residents, and even if there are employees at Rumsey Electric at that time, they'll be able to head to higher ground through our site up to 5th Avenue.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you, Jackie. Any other questions from members of the public?
Yeah, hi, this is Mike. Mike Mastriani at 417 West 5th.
Gotcha.
So following up on Margie's comment, I abut from a different end, or back up to overlooking Rumsey itself, and the production facility. The existing parking I see along that side, it's the excess over the 2 cars for each piece of property. I do see a lot of cars that park in there from the existing businesses there. So I'm concerned that that's the extra runoff for 2 cars for 48 units. And knowing that, and having been in and around this townhouse for many years, one party at one of the houses here has cars run up and down the street. So I can only assume that these smaller units might cater to a younger buyer, and rightfully so, and then would probably attract a lot of cars at times. I can't imagine what the street would be like with that much parking associated with
Thank you very much for the comment. Are there any additional comments from the members of the public? Okay, with that, Rob, we'll close the record in this matter, with the exception of, I forgot to mark as Exhibit B10, is a list of agreed to conditions between the applicant and the borough. Rob, I will get you a copy of B10, although I will represent to you that it is the exact same list that you and I had circulated previously, just with the letters B-10 on the bottom of it. This hearing will now be continued to August 4th, 2021 at 7:00 p.m. That meeting will occur via remote means, and the information regarding the remote meeting will be posted at www.conshohockenpa.gov. With that, we can excuse our court reporter. Thank you very much, Ed. Thank you, Rob and team, and close out the record in this matter.
Michael, am I clear that the evidentiary record is now closed, but the matter is being continued to August 4th for the rendering of a decision? Is that what you just stated?
That is correct, Rob. And if between now and then you realize you need to reopen it, I mean, certainly we'll talk about that. But yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Okay, Mr. Peters, we're closed for the hearing.
We are closed. You can move on to your next agenda item, President Leonard. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda under presentations is conduct interviews for the Marywood Park Commission. The first person on the agenda to be interviewed is Jane Flanagan. Good evening, Jane.
Jane, you're muted.
Hopefully that's better.
Works.
That is better.
Oh, hello, everyone. Sorry about that.
That's
Very nice to
okay.
meet
Thank you for joining us this evening, Jane.
you.
So
Okay, happy to be.
Good. I will start off with a question. Is there anything in particular that you would like to accomplish as a member of the Marywood Park Commission?
Well, as council members know, and some of the borough staff and our officials know, that I have been passionate about my love for the Marywood Park House and Marywood's legacy herself. So now I would very much like to continue as one of the commissioners. I feel that what we have started with the auxiliary group, the Friends of Country Parks, is an extensive plan to restore Marywood Park to its former glory, finish renovating the community center, and continue to polish Marywood Park. Although it's so fabulous, I have a hard time imagining what else we could do to improve Marywood Park. So I'm especially driven because I feel that the park and the community center and the park house are really an unappreciated gem in our town, that we have so much to offer there. And by accenting the positive, we've brought more and more people out, not just to Marywood Park, but to all our parks. So I would like to continue in that area.
Thank you. Does anyone else on council have a question for Jane?
It's Tina. Jane, since we've been out for the most part with COVID and not been able to do a whole lot, what are one or two of the things that you would like to make priority for the Marywood Park Commission?
Well, since we already had the analysis by the architectural firm Seller and Drury, I think it would be time to start our fundraising in earnest. We had started off and were getting some momentum, and then unfortunately COVID came along, so all of our events had to be virtual. And I think now that we are seeing the gates opening and people are more willing to attend events, that we would be able to have more things in the actual park house. And I would like to work with the Art League and possibly have some kind of art exhibit again to bring people in, and maybe even have a juried children's art show that people could submit their children's artwork or some type of thing, just to get people out to see the park house, walk them through. I think our Halloween parade, where we utilize the park house and everyone comes in and registers, opens so many eyes to the beauty of the building. And the same with our holiday celebration with Santa Claus coming to the town. That again, so many people were in the building for the very first time, and they'd say, "Oh, I've lived here 10 years. I was never here. This is great." Or I'm new to town, and we could tell them all about the history. And I think that's how, again, we make connections between people and Conshohocken's past and our present with our new residents. So I think that's very important, and that would be something I'd be very, very interested in being involved with.
Thanks.
Jane, it's Anita.
Yes.
So you're really looking forward to the restoration of the building, particularly all the gingerbread and having it painted and getting the roof done?
Yes.
Okay.
It would be
We'll
the
push for
concrete
that.
steps.
Yes.
Yes.
Does anyone else on council have any questions for Jane? Well, thank you, Jane, for joining us for your interview and your undying interest and loyalty to the Marywood Park Commission. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks so much. Have a great night.
You too, Jane. Thank you. Our next interview for the Marywood Park Commission is James Patrick Lynch. Good evening, Mr. Lynch.
Good evening.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your interest in the Marywood Park Commission.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Council. I appreciate the opportunity to be considered.
You're very welcome. So my first question for you would be, what do you believe is the role of the commission?
Yeah, so I'm a new resident to Conshohocken. I moved in 2 summers ago, and I have a young family. And one of the reasons I moved to the borough was because of the park system you guys have there. So I do think a big part of the role of the park commission is to really build up the community through improvements to the facilities, to improvements to programming, improvements to the landscapes, and to really develop it as a place for families to come and enjoy themselves. And I heard the question before from one of the members of council about how would you kind of bring us back from COVID, and I do think parks play a crucial role in that. Enjoying the outdoors, enjoying it all 4 seasons of the year, and really ensuring that Conshohocken remains a place for families to move to, and for adults to live, work, and play here as well.
Thank you. So what would, it kind of basically, you've already answered it, but I'll ask the question anyway. What would be your top priority as a member of the Marywood Park Commission?
Yeah, my top priority as a member of the Marywood Park Commission would be to kind of re-engage our community with our park system, especially Marywood Park. The new music garden, my 3-year-old loves that. I know that was just put in a few weeks ago, and I think that's a great way and something new to improve the surroundings, but also to engage families in ways before. Obviously, as the parks have become more open, there's more people enjoying them. And then obviously the community center as well. I have been to the community center, but obviously that was before the pandemic hit. And it is a beautiful space. It's a great place to hold events. It's a great place to really kind of do some networking, do some family atmosphere events, and to really kind of bring it kind of whole circle to really just kind of be that landmark in the borough for people to gather and to enjoy what the borough has to offer.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on council have any questions for Mr. Lynch?
Yeah, I do. Have you looked into the background of Marywood and learned its
history?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, very little. Again, I'm new to the borough, but I have kind of looked at the background, Marywood Park, the house, the grounds. I know the commission is big on kind of preserving that history. I do think it's something that, as Ms. Flanagan had mentioned, the auxiliary group for the Conchi Parks, I think that's important because while Marywood Park obviously serves as a big beacon of the community, I think it's important to continue kind of using that to improve all the areas of the community and all the parks, the 2nd and Maple Park, the Sutcliffe Park, and kind of really just, bring everything through there. The parades that we have, obviously, I know you guys had the Soapbox Derby a few weeks ago. So there's a lot of great things that do happen through the borough, and obviously Marywood does serve as that that kind of beacon of the community.
Thank you. Anyone else on council?
Well,
No, I do.
this is Karen Tutino. I looked through your resume, and which is very impressive. You have so much experience in publications and certifications. And I was just very interested, and I appreciate your commentary as far as what you're interested in. And it seems, you're very familiar, and I appreciate that. And I really like that you mentioned the park at down on Maple between first and second. So thank you.
Yeah, my
Thank you.
3-year-old thinks it's his own personal playground. We haven't broke the news to him yet that it's actually open to everyone.
Is there, you don't see a whole lot of usage?
No, it is. It's again, we moved in kind of a couple months before the pandemic. It was very used, and then it's really just trying to get everyone comfortable going out again and kind of being in those communal spaces. But it is used very often. I mean, at least we're there all the time, especially. But there's a lot of the street I'm on West 3rd, and the street I'm on, there's a lot of kids in that 3 to 5 age range that really take advantage of it, which is a great place for them to develop relationships and make friends and kind of build that community.
Good. I like to hear that. And it is his park.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Lynch. Is there anyone else from council with any questions? Okay. Thank you for joining us this evening and your interest in the Marywood Park Commission. It is truly appreciated by all of council. And I believe council will be deciding in the next few weeks on this part of the agenda. And we'll be in touch. So thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to be considered, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your meeting.
Thank you. You're very welcome. The next item on the agenda under presentations is conduct interviews for Borough Council candidates for Ward 5. I will remind council this evening that this is a no vote item for this evening. And our first person to interview for interviewing is Mr. Kevin Lukens. Good evening, Kevin.
Are you there? Hi,
Yes,
I don't know if you can hear me or not.
We can hear you.
And I've known you. Okay, Colleen, I've known you since you were a kid. I remember
know.
we were in Cubs, and your mother was a den mother.
Yes, she was. And you were in her path. I remember it well, Kevin.
I'll bet you do. You don't remember what you used to do to me, but I'm not going to bring it up here. I'll get even.
Well, I would appreciate that, Kevin.
Oh, I bet you will. No, it's all in. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So, Kevin, thank you for coming in this evening and showing your interest for being our council person for Ward 5. So I will start with asking you, what do you believe are the 3 greatest strengths of the Borough of Conshohocken?
Oh, the 3 greatest strengths?
Yes.
I would say, I don't know how I can answer this. I guess the community, the way people are with the community, I guess relationships in the community, and it is, and another strength. It's a small community, and let me think of a third one. I'm trying to think of a third one here. Safe community. And people know each other, I think, and it is a small community, and people do know each other and can help each other out when needed.
Okay. Thank you. Does someone else on council have a question for Kevin?
Yeah, it's Tina. Hi, Kevin.
Hello.
Does your interest in serving on the Borough Council stem from a personal interest or goal? And if so, is there something in particular that you would hope to accomplish while serving as interim role for the council seat?
I don't know if it's a personal goal, but I think the council could always use new blood and new ideas. And I'm not going to give you any ideas as of yet because I don't have any because I'm not in there. But I really think I just like to try it, and I think I could do pretty well. And the community can use, I think, new ideas and new blood in the council. And it's a personal goal. It's not that it's a personal goal or anything like that.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Anyone else on council?
Hi, Kevin. This is the mayor. How are you?
How are you, Mr. Mayor? We got to talk later on.
Okay. So first off, thank you for applying for this open seat. Can you tell us a bit about your work with nonprofits in the borough, including with the VFW?
Well, right now I am the president of the VFW Auxiliary, and we do have a newsletter, and I don't know if you got it or not. I'm sure you did. And that's one thing personally I got to talk to you about, because there's things that, with the VFW, I did things for the VFW Auxiliary we would have a craft fair, and I would be down at the post making doggy balloons for the kids, as you very well know, and I'm sure you've seen. And this past 4th of July, we had our soapbox derby, as the man who wanted to be on the commission for the Marywood Park had said. We did have a soapbox derby, and I was at 7th and Fayette with the VFW, and I was making doggy balloons for the kids, and we had a good turnout.
Okay, thank you, and I'll be sure to be in touch, Kevin.
Okay, son. Thank you.
Any other questions from council?
Colleen, I just have one that I'd like to ask for probably every candidate. Kevin, do you have any interest in participating in any professional or personal activity that could lead to or be perceived as a conflict of interest if you become appointed?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I'm in a couple of organizations. I'm in the AMBUCS, I'm in the White Marsh Lions Club, I'm in the fire department, and I'm in the Masonic fraternity, and I'm also, like I said, in the VFW Auxiliary. But I don't think that should be a conflict of interest.
All right, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Who was that spoke?
That was Tina. Sorry.
That was what?
Tina Sokolowski.
Okay. Oh, Sokolowski. Okay.
Okay, Kevin, I have one more question for you. If you could make one change and/or improvement to the Borough of Conshohocken, what would that change or improvement be?
Well, one of the things I'd like to make is one of the traffic lights at 6th Avenue. Yes, it has a button, but it doesn't talk. The light at 1st Avenue, 3rd Avenue, 9th Avenue, and 11th Avenue, they all talk, but the one at 6th Avenue does not. It does have a button, and yes, I have to listen to the cars, but where the other ones, they talk, and that's good for me. And I think it's good for anybody else that uses the light that maybe can't see as well as other people, and they have a little trouble getting around. They can hear the light. They can hear the light say 3rd Avenue crosswalk is on, Fayette Street crosswalk is on, but the one at 6th Avenue does not have a talker.
Gotcha.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Anyone else on council?
I'm good.
Okay. Thank you,
All
Kevin.
right.
Yes, thank you very much for coming in. Thank you for your interest in the interim council position. And it is something that council will take into consideration in the next few weeks, and we will be in touch.
Okay, you have everything you need in the whole ball of wax?
We do. Thank you very much.
All right. I'm gonna leave because I don't want this call to fail. I'll see you guys later. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. The next person to interview for the interim council position is Daniel Lynch. Good evening, Daniel.
Hello, thank you for having me.
You're quite welcome. Thank you for your interest in our council position. So I will start with asking you if you've previously served on any governing board or any type of business, government, or nonprofit organization, or as a leader in any organization.
I have not currently. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to potentially be considered for this one.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Council?
So Daniel, it's Tina Sokolowski.
Hi, Tina.
How are you? Does
Good.
your interest, good, good. Does your interest in serving on the Borough Council stem from any personal interests or goals? And then is there something in particular that you'd like to accomplish while serving in an interim role?
It does not stem from any personal interests, no. But your second question, I believe in the interim role, I would like to try to, help with the restaurant scene. I'm one of the what I would consider demographic of the new Conchi. But through my volunteering and community groups, I've had the chance to interact with new and old Conchi, and I would love to bridge the gap between them. Not that there's a necessarily gap, but just make it a place where all residents can thrive. But one of my things, I believe that the restaurant scene is a pretty big staple of our borough here, and I know they've suffered over the past year and a half. So I think one of the things I would try to at least help with or assist with is just helping them build back, with different ideas, maybe like co-sponsoring any events we do, because I think everyone can reap the benefits of that. So that's just something quick that I think that we could potentially do.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
And hi, this is Karen. I think when you first started to explain that, you said part of some different organizations or volunteer.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on that, please?
Sure. Like shortly after I moved to Conshohocken, I got involved with St. Matthew's Parish. I'm a high school teacher, so I do love working with kids, and they asked me to start teaching their CCD prep classes, which were on Monday nights. And then after they switched to Sundays, it was a conflict for me. So then soon after, they asked me to lead the youth group, actually create and lead the youth group. And we've done events like trick-or-treating for, Halloween masses where we have kids dress up and hand out candy. We carol at Marshall Lee Towers. And then I also have been involved with the Conshohocken Bocce Club. In the last couple of years, I've taken more of an active role in the communications committee. I think just certain things like that have helped me. And I kind of knew early on that this was going to be the place that I wanted to, start my family and raise my children. And if anyone's wondering, that handsome guy who interviewed for a Marywood commission is my younger brother, and I like to he's I've been here 10 years, and I actually, it's funnier enough, it was the park system that I think helped me sell it to him and his wife. And I fell in love with Conshohocken, and I'm at a place in my life, my family, where I have the time to put into a position like this, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to be considered.
So then, if you're saying that you really like Conshohocken so much that you convinced your brother to also come here, how would you compare it to maybe other neighboring municipalities or other places that you've lived? What kind of drew you here, again, so much so that you sold him on that?
Yeah. So I lived in Doylestown Borough, so I'm kind of a borough guy. But this is a lot more convenient. You can't get anywhere from Doylestown in less than an hour. But it's a perfect location. I love the walkability of the town. I can't say enough. I love when we shut down Fayette for whatever event, car show, soap. I think that is the best thing. And I know I'm probably getting, some, different eye rolls on that one. But I think that's one of the things that I also sold them on is just how well I think the borough plans these activities. And I can't help to think that any of those, events help bring in revenue for the borough as well. All the businesses, I think, love it when that happens. Fun Fest. I was thrilled. I mean, we haven't had one in a while, but the car show and the craft fair was breathtaking. Like I was so happy, and those are the type of things that help build community, and that's what I love about this. It is a community. Kind of, you move here, and it doesn't take much for you to feel like you've been here for a little while.
Great, thank you. You might not get this reference, but my brother does call it the modern day Mayberry. So.
I do not get that reference. I apologize.
No,
Aaron, you're just showing your age on that one.
Yeah.
Oh, didn't I earlier when I said that?
I think I might be showing my age on that one too.
Yes, in a more positive note.
Favorable, yes.
Okay, so I do have one more question for you also. Borough Council must render decisions regarding the implementation of policies and programs that may be difficult. Are you willing to take on the responsibility of making decisions that are in the best interest of the borough majority, even though they may be somewhat difficult or opposed by a majority of the population?
It's a great question. I absolutely would love to, take into consider, all aspects, especially, talking with as many people from my ward as possible. But, I think that just agreeing with the majority isn't always going to, be the right call. But I understand that it's going to be difficult decisions that need to be made, that even if the population is going to be upset about it, it's a decision that, they might not have all the information that the borough council might have, and making those decisions is going to be tough. But I'm not afraid to make a tough decision. It doesn't have to be a well-liked decision to be the right decision.
Thank you.
Right. So,
Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, how are you at engaging with your ward? Do you see yourself being available a lot?
I do, yeah. I have I'm on the 100 block of East 8th, and a couple of my neighbors jokingly call me the street captain. I like to welcome the new neighbors. We have a mix between rental properties and single family homes. So I'll try to talk to anyone who's willing to talk, and I do think that I could talk to a brick wall if I needed to. But no, I do think that that wouldn't be an issue for me.
Okay.
So what I would like to comment and kind of tie together Anita's question with the time, and then also in being able to make decisions knowing full well that you can't please everyone. So the council requirements are, we have 2 meetings a month, and so that can be between 1 and 3 hours. However, there is a lot of time involved to prepare for the meetings. You'll see an agenda that's 1 or 2 pages, but in fact, I think our prep for today was 200 some pages. And not meant to, well, I was going to say not meant to scare you, but you do need to be aware of that. The other part is for your time, having children or young children, I think you said, that is, there are ways that you're incorporating your family and what you're doing, because it is such a community event. So it takes you out there to all those different events, whether it's Soapbox, Fun Fest, etc. So there are ways to tie in your council responsibilities with your family. So I don't know that I really had any question in it. I just wanted to, when you go through an interview, we're interviewing you, but it's also your opportunity to interview us. And is this the right thing for you?
Sure. Yeah, no, I do recognize that I have not been, involved as I would like to have been. I've been talking about, trying to be more involved, and as my kids are just reaching elementary age, so I have a little bit more leeway. And I'm willing to put in the time. I don't do anything halfway. I am committed. Half the things that you were talking about, I think, more than half, my family and I already go to. And I think that that's also important because I want them to be proud of something that I'm proud to do, to serve this community that I love so much. And just putting that time, obviously my family time will come first, but I have ways that I can manage what I need to. And I think that given the opportunity, I would do good things. And I think that I think I could make my family proud, which is something that I'm interested in doing as well.
Okay, so one last question.
Sure.
All these wonderful things about Conshohocken. It's great. That's why we're all here. What would you need, in your opinion, that you would like to see improved? What could Conchi do differently?
I think, well, I know any of the community outreach stuff, I think getting more of the pre-existing restaurants, clubs. I know we have a bunch of social clubs. Obviously, I talked about Conshohocken Bocce Club, but getting more of those organizations, the VFW, I know that they have their hand in, but trying to pull them in a little bit more to really, promote that community. There could be sponsorship ideas. Obviously, that goes into a whole bunch of other issues, but I think there's people who feel like different compartments of Conchi. We're a 1 square mile borough, and people still feel like they live, well, which side of Fayette do you live on? Like, we don't need to have that conversation, but anything that we could do to probably get the pre-existing, organizations who are willing to co-sponsor events with us. And honestly, it's the community stuff, whether it be at any of our outdoor spaces or the community center as well, to promote, to continue promoting, some of, our residents, it doesn't matter, residents of all ages, but a place that people want to live and grow and, like me, brag to their family members that look what's happening in Conshohocken. Like, we have a pretty cool place to live. So I think really just trying to pull in more of the organizations to whether it be a trash cleanup, a few of the restaurants, or say, hey, let's organize a trash cleanup on, this day, Saturday morning in the spring. Let's go for it. And, we'll go to different places that people will let us know. I know there's there's a Facebook group that already does some of that, cleanup, but I think we could pull in some of the organizations to really put more manpower into it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Daniel, hi, this is the mayor. How are you?
Hi, Mayor. Good, how are you?
Good. I'm a fellow public school teacher, so I really appreciated seeing your application, so thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, so, no matter what council decides on this seat, I certainly hope you get in touch, because I could certainly use help from great people like you to help put on the car show. And we actually run 2 major cleanups throughout the year that gets 100+ people. So
oh, fantastic.
So feel free to be in touch, and we'd love to have you be a part of some of the things that we do around town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, will
That's
do.
it.
Absolutely.
And thank you for applying.
Yeah.
So
Well,
thank you, Daniel. Thank you for coming in this evening and giving us your time. and your interest in the interim council position. We truly appreciate it. And we will be in touch.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Thanks. The next candidate for interviewing is Rita Montemare. Rita, are you here?
I'm here. It's nice to be with you all.
Thank you, Rita. It's good to hear you again anyway, at least, right? Hopefully we'll get back to in person soon. So my first question would be for you, why is serving on Borough Council important to you?
Oh, why is it important to me? I guess the question is, Conshohocken has put out a need for someone to fill for Ward 5, and I love Conshohocken and want to see that position filled. I think your applicants so far have been fabulous. You can't make a wrong decision, and I'm just willing to throw in my hat to give you another option of someone who's willing to serve in Conshohocken.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else on council?
Rita, how long have you lived here?
Well, I think it's about 18 years.
That's close enough, Rita.
I think, and I think I've been a homeowner about 12 of them.
Thank you.
Are you involved in anything else within the borough?
At this time, I'm serving on the parking task force.
Anyone else have a question for Rita?
Sure, I'll ask Rita the same question I've been asking everybody. Rita, is your interest in serving coming on Borough Council coming from any specific personal interest or goal? And is there something in particular that while you would serve as interim, you would like to accomplish?
Unfortunately, I don't have any great ideas or agendas that I'm coming with, but I see that you guys have a lot that you're working on, a 200-page prep document. I'm willing to come and be a part of and help lift the load. Assign me where you need me.
Thanks,
Great,
Rita.
thank you.
And Rita, for an FYI, sometimes they're 600 to 800 pages, just so you know.
Don't scare them off.
Hey, it's a hard truth in our world. So, Rita, what do you believe are the three greatest strengths of the borough?
Well, first and foremost would be our community. It is walkable. We have the library, our elementary school, our fellowship house, our parks, our families, our neighbors. For me, because that's where I most fit into Conshohocken so far, that is our greatest strength. I think our next would be our businesses. We have a thriving business here in Conshohocken. And our third, it's our location. We're close to the city. I feel like the town has been well planned. I love that Fayette Street is so wide. I love how Conshohocken has come and grown. I just love how it's been planned. I think it was done very wisely.
Great. Okay, thank you. I do have one other question. Property tax revenue from local millage is a primary revenue source for the borough. I'm sorry, there's so much backfeed. The Borough of Conshohocken's current rate is 4.5 mils. To date, the borough has operated under the notion that the millage rate should be marginally adjusted either up or down in reaction to annual fluctuations in revenues and/or spending priorities established by Borough Council. Do you agree with this philosophy on local property tax millage? Or if not, what would your philosophy be on property tax?
I hate to disappoint you, President Leonard. I am unfamiliar with this. and would need to do a lot of research to get up to speed to give you an educated answer. I'm sorry to leave you hanging like that.
That's okay. That honesty is always a good answer, Rita. I appreciate it. Okay, so does anyone on council have any more questions for Rita?
Rita, rest assured that would be part of maybe the 200 pages. So don't have any concern with that. There's many things that we all had to learn. Yeah.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay.
Rita, this is Yaniv. How are you?
I'm well, Mr. Aronson. How are you?
It's good. Good to see you. Thank you for applying. So my question is, it has to do with COVID, just because it's kind of the
Sure.
big thing that's happened here. And it really did affect us locally, as you know. Council supported a strong stance when it came to COVID, quickly closing our government buildings, even our parks at one point early on. With numbers back on the rise, what would inform your response as a council person if new safety measures or even closures were recommended and requested by our personnel?
Well, that's a great question, and you happen to land in one of my few strengths. I serve as the Deputy Pandemic Safety Officer for my organization. We're about 500 people, and it is my responsibility to monitor, the World Health Organization, CDC, PA Department of Health, and our Montgomery County health guidance, which aren't always in alignment, but ultimately to come up with a plan for our business and to keep our colleagues and fellow employees safe. So my advice would be to keep step with the advice and the guidance that we're being given, and how we've been making decisions is to weigh what each organization is saying and go with the conservative route to make safety a priority.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rita.
Sure.
Anyone else on council?
I'm good.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming in this evening, Rita. We appreciate your time and we appreciate your interest in the council position. It is something that we will decide on in the next 2 weeks, so we will be in touch.
It sounds great. Thanks so much for your time.
You're
Thank
so
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
In the ring.
Okay, the next person on the agenda is Kathleen Kingsley. Good evening, Kathleen.
Good evening.
How are you this evening?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Thank you for coming in and thank you for your interest in our council position. So my first question for you would be, why is serving on Borough Council important to you?
Well, I really want to become more involved in my community, in Conshohocken in general. I've lived here a very long time, and I've been retired for quite a long time, but I've had a lot of family obligations, and now I don't have any of those anymore. So I have a lot of free time, and I like to put it to good use. I've considered this in the past, but it never was the right time, and I think this is the right time.
Okay, thank you. Does someone else on council have a question for Kathleen?
So Kathleen, what did you retire from? What is there?
I worked for the United States Postal Service in Bluebell.
And how long I don't know if you said this, how long have you been a resident here in Conshohocken?
I've been here for 24 years. I moved in here in April of 97, and a few months after that, I moved into my own house here on East 8th Avenue.
Okay, so then you've had an opportunity to see a lot of change over the time that you've lived here.
Right.
In kind of drawing a comparison of then and now, what are some of the difference, good, bad, or indifferent, from your perspective?
Well, mostly they're all good. I don't know if you were in Conshohocken around 97, but it was a little, I wouldn't say it was a dying town, but it was one that needed a lot of help. And I think we've seen a lot of recovery, especially in the past maybe 10 years, but I'm very pleased with the difference in Conshohocken. I think the development has, for the most part, been good, and I would like to see that continue to be good and to be done properly and wisely and not just randomly.
What other changes would you like to see, Kathleen?
I really have a big interest in street safety. I like what Kevin said about the traffic light. More crosswalks. There's been 2 on East 8th Avenue. One right up the street from me at the intersection of 8th and Jones, and at the next intersection up at Wells. Just painting the crosswalks makes the drivers much more aware of the fact that there are stop signs. You know, Conshohocken, we kind of have the rolling stops here in Conshohocken, and I'd like to see more attention paid to the fact that there are people out walking every day. I walk every day. And I think that would be a good thing, more at the intersections at Fayette, and they have, but pretty much have all been painted and have that nice design, and maybe some more traffic. We don't really want any more traffic lights on Fayette, but maybe some more signals that would help people a little bit.
Thank you. Anyone else on council?
Yeah, Kathleen, I'll ask a question we asked another member. So we talked about a lot of times in this role, you have to make some difficult decisions when you want to look at implementing policies and programs. Are you willing to take on the responsibility to make the decisions in the best interest of the borough, even though it might be difficult and opposed by the minority or majority of the population?
Absolutely. I was a shop steward for the American Postal Workers Union for 15 years, and I made a lot of tough decisions, and I had to tell a lot of people things they didn't want to hear. So I don't think that part of it would be a problem. I think if you do the right thing and you follow the laws and the rules, you don't really have a problem. You're not going to make everybody happy, but you're going to do the right thing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Anyone else on council?
Kathleen, I'll just ask a similar version of what I asked Rita. What would inform your response as a council person as far as COVID, if numbers rise and we have to increase safety measures or even closures, and it was requested of you to do that by emergency services or our professional staff? What would inform those decisions for you?
Well, I think what would inform the decisions, with the infection rates are going up, if public safety is at risk. We've all been through, I don't know what, 15, 16 months of this now. I'm vaccinated. I would encourage everybody to be vaccinated. I know we've had a lot of tremendous outreach here in Montgomery County anyway, if not specifically the borough, and I would like to see that continue. I think it would be tough to tell the residents that they have to wear their mask or forbid close up the restaurants, because we all love having the restaurants open again. I've been walking around doing my own survey on who makes the best tacos. It's El Limon. But yeah, I think if we have to do that, we have to do that. I don't think anybody's looking forward to it. If we all get vaccinated, I hope we don't have to go there.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Kathleen? Okay. Kathleen, thank you so much for your interest and your time this evening. It is truly appreciated by all of council. And we will be making a decision in the next 2 weeks before our next council meeting, and we will be in touch.
Okay, thank you, Colleen.
You're so welcome. Okay, with that, that will conclude our interviews for this evening, and we will move on to the consent agenda. So the first item on the consent agenda is approve and adopt the June 2nd and June 15th regular meeting minutes. So I would be asking council for a motion to approve and adopt the June 2nd and June 16th regular meeting minutes.
I'll make that motion.
I'll make that motion. Ike Griffin.
Okay, so
I'll
we'll take
second.
thank you. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is approve the June ending treasurer's report and accounts payable. So I'd be seeking from council a motion to approve the June ending treasurer's report and accounts payable in the amount of $757,810.82.
Colleen, can you recall out that number one more time?
I can. It's $757,810.82.
I'll make that motion. Sokolowski.
Thank you.
Second, Ike Griffin.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is new business, and I will turn that over to Ms. Checo.
Thank you, President Leonard. The
You're
first
welcome.
item is to accept the resignation of Mary Kate O'Brien from the EAC. I would need a motion to accept the resignation, and then we will advertise the vacancy.
I'll make that motion, Anita.
I'll second Colleen. All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
The items B through F are all escrow release recommendations. All of the sites have been visited by our borough engineer. Her release recommendations were included in your meeting packet. So I'm going to read motions for each of the specific locations and the dollar amount that is being recommended to release. And I will need a motion for each individual item. The first is the 7 Tower Bridge Financial Security Escrow Release number 3 in the amount of $798,527.52.
I will make that motion, Tutino.
I'll second it, Anita.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
The next is a first and final financial security escrow release for the demolition of 331 West 7th in the amount of $27,887.20.
I'll make that motion, Anita.
I'll second it, Griffin.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
The next is to approve the 331 West 7th Avenue Financial Security Escrow Release number 1 in the amount of $56,022.50.
No, I'll
I
make
will
that
make that
motion again.
Tutino.
Do we have a motion from Karen Tatino and a second from,
Sokolowski.
Ike Griffin.
thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
The next is 340 East 9th Avenue Financial Security Escrow Release number 1 in the amount of $75,315.25.
I'll make that motion. Ike Griffin.
I'll second it, Tutino.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
And the last financial security escrow release is for 3 Caldwell Lane. It is escrow release number 6, the amount of $172,516.45.
I'll make
I'll
that
make that
motion.
motion. I'll
We love
second
them.
it, Tutino.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
We have a resolution for your consideration to authorize the sale of a police vehicle on Municipid. This is part of our depreciation schedule for vehicles. It is a 2011 Ford Crown Victoria sedan. It is recommended that the minimum bid start at $2,500. I need approval for resolution 2021-11 to authorize the sale of that vehicle on Municipid with a minimum bid of $2,500.
I'll make that motion. Ike Griffin.
I'll second it. Tutino.
All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is a discussion on temporary parking restrictions in certain areas in the borough. As you will recall, during COVID-19, Borough Council adopted certain parking regulations to facilitate takeout and outdoor dining in the area of Fayette Street between First Avenue and Second Avenue. While we've lifted the COVID restrictions, the demand for takeout and curbside pickup remains. So a discussion was had between the parking task force. There was also a discussion with some of the business representatives in that area. Tonight we are requesting that Borough Council consider approving a resolution that would establish temporary parking regulations, specifically 4 15-minute to-go orders only parking spaces on Fayette Street between East First and East Second, and 1 15-minute to-go orders only parking space on East First Avenue. The remaining spaces that currently are marked as no parking would return to metered parking spaces, and we would be specifically utilizing Park Mobile and those spaces. So again, these to-go parking spaces would be identified by post signage, and they would be temporary for a period of 90 days so that we could continue to evaluate the effectiveness of these new regulations to make sure we're meeting the sentiments of the parking task force along with the businesses.
Stephanie, these recommendations were from the parking task force?
The parking task force made the recommendation that they specifically would maintain the no parking structure in the area so that the to-go orders and the drop-offs could be maintained. We took that recommendation to the businesses. The businesses indicated that they don't need the entirety of that section, that there could be a mix of metered parking and the to-go parking spaces. So I would say it's a compromise and a hybrid between both entities, the task force and the businesses in that area. Again, to be temporary and evaluated and brought back to both groups. See if we are getting closer to what works for everyone to the best of our ability, and then something more formal would be brought to council's attention after it's discussed and vetted through those two entities.
Great. I like that we've got feedback from multiple key stakeholders, so agree.
So if you're inclined, the motion would be to approve Resolution 2021-12, which establishes the 4 temporary to-go orders, only parking restrictions on Fayette between First and Second Avenue, and 1 temporary to-go orders, only parking restriction on East First Avenue.
I'll make that motion, Sokolowski.
I'll second it. Gordon.
All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
The last item under new business is to consider approving a fire services agreement with Conshohocken Fire Company number 2 and the Washington Fire Company, and a lease agreement with the Washington Fire Company. I will turn it over to Mike Peters to give you a bullet point synopsis of the agreement. I would say that to date, the collaboration between both of the fire companies, Borough Administration, the subcommittee created by Borough Council, and Council, the collaboration should be commended between all of those entities. It should be highlighted this evening, the positive position that the borough has placed itself in. A big thank you to the presidents of both of our fire companies, along with our emergency management team, our fire chief. There was many conversations over many, many months that have led us to this point. And I think that the borough should be commended for its efforts to look towards the future in fire services. So Mike, if you want to just give a synopsis, and then we'll go into any discussion.
Sure, sounds good, Steph. So as Steph said, this is the culmination of many months of work, all positive work, and where we've landed are the 2 documents that are in front of you. The fire services agreement is the overall document that establishes the relationship between the fire companies and the borough moving forward. So that agreement addresses things such as the services to be provided by the fire departments, the expectations placed on fire company personnel, the yearly allocation that the borough will give, which remains at the discretion of borough council, the fire apparatus, where those fire apparatus and how they are assigned, how those fire apparatus are maintained, the insurance on the fire apparatus, ditto for the portable apparatus that are used. There are reports, specific monthly and or yearly reports that are required under the fire services agreement. There are indemnification and insurance clauses under the fire services agreement, and there is an annual financial audit of the allocated funds by the borough under the fire services agreement. So the fire services agreement takes the relationship and formalizes it. So you're aware, the current term under the fire services agreement is 1 year. It's designed so it can easily be extended as necessary or amended as necessary, subject to the agreement of all parties. The reason we landed at a year was because that'll give us a forced opportunity to review the relationship and how it's going, and whether or not there are any amendments that are required. But my hope is that we've worked long enough on it that and have the agreement of everyone that if there are any changes, there'll only be productive changes aimed at better explaining what's expected. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about the fire services agreement, and then we can move on to the lease.
Council have any questions for Mr. Peters?
No questions.
Okay. Mr. Peters, you
Very
can
good.
move on. Thank you.
Great. So the next document that you have before you is a lease between the Borough and Washington Fire Company. That lease is for the engine room within Washington Fire Company, and then some additional areas within the fire company. There remains, of course, a members-only space within Washington Fire Company, and to that point in number 2 as well, although that's obviously not addressed under this lease. It's an area of about 4,100 square feet, plus or minus. The lease sets forth, obviously, responsibilities for maintenance. The borough would be responsible for maintenance of the interior of our space, as well as those areas that are required for our access, and that is specifically the overhead doors, the accessway, and the apron. There is a provision for base rent, and then there is additional rent that the borough would pay, and that is for the proportionate share of electrical, water, and sewer. If those are placed on separate meters, we'll pay our metered rate. If not, we've reached an agreement whereby there will be a presumption of a 50% split. And then we also have agreed to, or are proposing to agree to, a 50% split of the sprinkler service and emergency generator service for the building. Aside from maintenance, everything else is really anything you'd expect in a normal lease. There are no surprises in there. We will. Are you guys getting feedback as well?
A little.
Yeah.
Let me try again. We will maintain insurance for our space. We've already been in contact with the borough's insurance company, and of course the fire company will maintain its insurance over the remainder of the building, and I'm sure we'll continue to insure our space as landlords. So those are the provisions set forth within the lease. The documents are lengthy, although I think they're relatively easy to get through. So I'll answer any questions on the lease, and then if you are inclined, I would recommend 2 separate motions, one for the fire services agreement and one for the lease.
Anyone on council have any questions on the lease?
No.
Okay. Okay, Steph, we can move along with the motions.
So the first motion is to approve a fire services agreement with Conshohocken Fire Company number 2 and the Washington Fire Company.
I'll make that motion, Tutino.
I'll second it, Griffin.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
The second motion is to approve a lease agreement with the Washington Fire Company.
I'll make that motion. Barton?
I'll second it. Tutino.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much, President Leonard. I would just like to reiterate a big thank you to Ray Sokolowski, Tim Gunning, Jackie Pierce, Andy Carlin, and Mike Peters for working through and getting us to the point where we now are a municipality in Montgomery County that has a fire services agreement and a lease, and we are positioned for success in the future. So thank you very much.
Much appreciated by all, for sure. And a special thank you to Ray for starting it all and having the vision for getting us to this point. It is truly appreciated. So, okay. So the next, Steph, is that everything you have?
That is all I have under new business, President Leonard.
Okay, thank you. So the next item is public comment. I will first ask Brittany to see if she has any submitted comments.
No, I have no written public comments to read.
Okay, thank you, Brittany. Is there anyone this evening for public comment?
There is one.
Okay. Could you state your name and address?
Hi, everybody. This is Joe Farino from 412 Old Elm Street.
Hi, Joe.
How are you all?
Good.
Packed agenda today, so I appreciate you taking another few minutes for my comment. It's about the temporary parking restrictions that was just passed. I fully support the motion to approve that. I think it's great, especially during these times. And I would comment that I have been speaking with the borough, and I'm preparing a zoning submission this month. As you might know, I have a business on Maple Street, and there's a bunch of different businesses on Maple Street that have pickup and delivery. And I would comment that outside of the current motion that was passed for Fayette, there are businesses on Maple Street that could definitely use a couple of these temporary parking spots for curbside pickup. And I'll give you an example and expand on that thought. My business is deeded specifically as delivery only, whereby I could have DoorDash come, as many times as I can up till 7 p.m., but I can't have curbside pickup for anybody that wants to come. So especially during these times, it is challenging for businesses to hire. As you might know, there are some businesses that actually have to shut down or limit their hours because of staffing restrictions. And also, obviously, with the resurgence of COVID, it's a little complicated to get food to people safely. So having this as an option for a lot of businesses in town, not just in the business district, may be a good thing to consider.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for your comments and your thoughts on the issue. We truly do appreciate it. Is there anyone else for public comment?
Yes, I have a comment or maybe a question. This is Anna DeSantis at 200 West Elm. I wanted to ask a question about the applicants for the two positions. I think one was the Park Commission and the other one is for a seat on the council. Could I ask, how do you receive any public comment about those candidates, or do you just discuss it amongst yourselves, or what kind of input do you normally get from Conshohocken Borough residents, or how could we submit some comment if we had a comment or a suggestion or like a favorite? Like I'd like to say, I liked one of those young men with the families. I think that, well, let me just say this. I think that focusing on our children is really critical and imperative. And to see two young men with two young families applying to be trying to be a part of the running of the community and the decision making because they have children. I think their opinion really is important because their decisions and opinions will affect their own children as well. So I just want to say how important it is that we really focus on the children, especially after this pandemic year. So many children are suffering psychologically, emotionally, and even physically. And in order to recover from this, I really think we need to stay focused on the children. We're pretty resilient. Children are too, but they need a little extra. So I just wanted to put that out there. But if I did have like a choice or a comment about a candidate or wanted to suggest one that I would like to see on the board, how would I be able to do that? Just could I write in or call somebody on the board?
I think that you could do it by email. I
Okay.
would start suggestion with your council person. Would be a great
Okay, that would, I
starting
think that's
point.
Karen. Yeah, I think
Right.
Karen, you're here down
Yes.
by the Grand. Yeah. Okay, then that's what I'll do. Karen, is your email on the site somewhere?
Yeah, it is. Let me,
Okay,
yeah.
that's all right. I'll find it. I don't want to. You guys have been really great, and you had such a long meeting tonight, and thank you so much for being here for all of us. And
Welcome.
that's all I have.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it.
And I would extend that question that Anna you had. That's the reason why this council has really stood firm on having a process where we have interviews and then have time to get feedback from our constituents before we actually vote on something. So I appreciate that question and just kind of the ability to explain why we do things the way that we do. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
President Leonard, just to add from an administrative perspective, if there is any feedback that we receive from the public regarding any of the candidates, it will be packaged prior to your next meeting and will be included in the information that you review prior to rendering a vote.
Okay. Thank you, Steph. So if we have no more public comments, I would go to Mayor Aronson.
Thank you, President Leonard.
You're welcome.
We did have a meeting off, so there's a little more than usual because we stayed very busy in town. I first want to say thank you to our administration, police, fire police, and public works staff for their work on the fireworks and the soapbox derby earlier this month. Sarah and I walked around after the fireworks, and we talked to some staff who were working late that night and then coming right back the next morning to set up for the soapbox derby. So we appreciate all of their hard work ensuring that two of our community events returned this summer. And of course, as you can see from those pictures, the fireworks looked absolutely beautiful. And then we also have a really cool event coming up. The Reading Phillies are having a Conshohocken night. So they are asking our local businesses to sponsor packages, and they will then give huge quantities of tickets for sponsorships. I've already seen a few businesses on Facebook saying that residents can message them or email them for tickets. I know our staff will be getting tickets. So thank you to the Reading Phillies. That is going to be on August 15th at 5:15 p.m. And the event is open to just about anyone. And we hope to have a great showing and have a great night at the ballpark. And then the last thing, I have two police department matters. The first is that we have our annual community shredding. I've been working with Detective Walter to put on this year's event. It will be community shredding only, so there will not be an electronics recycling this year. That's going to be on Saturday, September 25th from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. And that's going to be in the Caldwell Banker parking lot on Fayette. And then just a small story about our department. I received a call last week about a resident was in distress, and I was able to get their information to our police chief, and officers were there within minutes to help the resident. He was having issues with the heat, especially. They bought him groceries. They got him enrolled on Meals on Wheels, and they got him connected to county services. So a big thank you to our police department going above and beyond. And I will just mirror what Chief Metz says every meeting, which is really all of our departments are here for issues big and small. So please get in touch especially if you're in distress. We will make sure you get the help that you need. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Aronson. Ms. Barton, do you have anything this evening?
Just a huge thank you to our streets department, our fire department, and all of those involved in our fireworks and getting them off and keeping us all safe. Thank you so much.
Okay. Mr. Tino?
I don't have anything. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Griffin? Ike? Okay, Ike may have left us by now. Vice President Sokolowski?
I have nothing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Metz?
Nothing to add, Madam President.
Okay, thank you, Chief Metz. So with that, if no one else has anything else this evening, I will say meeting adjourned.
President Leonard, I just have two quick things. Can I just do two
Sure.
thank yous real fast? Okay.
Yes.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to bring to your attention two thank yous on behalf of the borough. The first is to Mr. Brookshire and Keystone Property Group for their donation to the borough of 9 trees from the Sora site into an on-borough property. So thank you to Mr. Brookshire and Keystone Property Group. And also a big thank you to Mr. Gupta and Guppies, specifically for their donation of 3 picnic tables from their property to the Friends of Conshohocken Parks for the use of those picnic tables in our parks. So again, just wanted to highlight two very generous contributions to our community when I had the chance. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Steph, and thank you to Keystone and Guppies for their donations. It's much appreciated by all. And now I will say, meeting adjourned.
Good night, all.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.